Secondary?
Yep.
Kevin, you're in the shot.
Are we good?
Yep.
Like I can say welcome?
You can say welcome.
What camera? I thought it was supposed to be green when we were on there.
No, it's only one light.
Only one light.
On
Hi,
top.
folks. Welcome to our Saturday Night Live, YouTube Live. And tonight's topic is, you're in the middle of the camera, Rex. Tonight's topic is workbenches. Building workbenches. Got lots of stuff for you tonight. You're not going to want to miss it. Got some special guests. And first question.
No, Luther hasn't got back to me yet.
Are there any that have come up on the... Okay, well then I'll do the introduction. So we have Moose here with us tonight. And Moose sponsors one of our giveaways. A dead cat sweater. We got our new ones, which is... Oh, I'm losing somebody. I got to get that glued back on. The little happy sweaters. We may have some models for you tonight. We have a draw at the end of the night. And tonight we're giving away one of our brand new... We've actually got, we're building up our inventory, so we'll release it sometime this coming week. But our new 3/4, it's called, actually I got one that I can actually show you that's finished. I'll send Rex over. So every $1,000 increment of donations tonight for the PHP, we'll give away one of the new 3/4 dovetail saws. It's called the Len Robichaud 3/4 saw, and I'll tell you the story about it. Actually, I'm going to save that because on our next one, I'm going to have John Robichaud, my friend, come in and talk about his World War II father, who the saw is named after, and the story behind it. But that's what we're giving away tonight, so make sure you register. Frick will put the thing up. We'll give away 3 either dead cats, happy sweaters, or golf shirts tonight. Put your name in the registration, in the draw for that. And what else? Ken's on tonight, but Ken's at home. Luther's on, I believe. Luther should be on. Super Dave? Super Dave's on. That's Super Goat, sorry. It's taken a while. Frick's here behind the camera, behind the scenes on his Frick cam. Jake's here behind the camera. Is Megan on? Is she doing tallying? Megan's tallying up the donations. And if you're a combat wounded vet, that has been, what's the matter, Frick?
Just keep going. I don't have a link to the wireless camera.
That has been in one of our classes, combat wounded vet that has been in one of our classes. There are 95 of you out there. Please give a shout out in the chat. Just put Megan at Megan.
At Megan.
At Megan.
M-E-A-G-A-N.
M-E-A-G-A-N. And we'll give you a shout out. Always like to acknowledge you. Bob Abbott. Shoot, it didn't arrive. It's going to be pushed off another 2 weeks. I'll tell you about something we're going to do to help the vets that have been in our class as well. Would you mind me to talk about Bob Abbott? Angie's on there, I'm sure. Angie and Lynn. Angie takes care of all the packaging of our Purple Heart t-shirts that you see over there. No, you see over here. And this is Angie. Oh, actually, Ken didn't leave it. It's got a new picture of her with her hat. Where is she? That's Angie. So if you buy a t-shirt from us and it's nicely packaged with a little seal on there with an A, that's Angie. And who else am I can't think of anybody else. Special hello to my wife who's watching at home. I'll be home soon, honey. All right, now can we start, Frick?
Just a second.
Well,
Sure.
Okay, give me a question.
Bill Baker in
Hi, Bill.
Sammamish, Washington.
It's not, what did you?
It's S-A-M-M-A-M-I-S-H. Sammamish?
Yeah, that's not quite how you say it.
Sammamish.
I know how, but now you ruined it. Go ahead. What's?
Okay. Bill's question is,
Hi, Bill.
my shop is very small, so my workbench has to be up against the wall. Where would you put the vise, face or end?
I'd buy 2. Actually, you could put it on the end. So if you're up against the wall, I never work on this side. So I could be up against the wall and you really wouldn't notice it. So as long as you have enough room here, Obviously, if you're going to be right-handed, it's not going to be an issue if the wall's over here. If it's left-handed, you just have to turn it around. But I would still put it on the end if you just want to use one vise. You want two vices, then it doesn't matter.
Would you make your bench a little wider if it was against the wall?
Possibly, that's not a bad idea. Well, throw in a tool tray, and that would push out enough. Where's Rex? I need Rex to bring me in a vise, and I need Rex to bring me in one of the new saws. See if I can find him. Is Rex here? Chloe? Would you find him for me, please, and send him in? We're so professional. Kevin's here. Talk to you about Kevin in a minute. So, as Jake said, yes, I'd make it a little bit wider, or at least would put a tool tray in, which would be nice, because that would give you that little buffer. Keep stuff from... your bench needs to... Let me address what I'm trying to talk about. You'll notice that my bench is 17 inches wide. And even trying to plane out here is extremely awkward. So I have never wanted a bench to be any wider than that. So don't think you need to have a bench that's 36 inches, because all that'll do is just pile up junk, because you'll never be out there. But it is nice, if the wall was there, it is nice to have that tool tray so that stuff ends up down in there instead of on your bench. It's only 17 inches wide, but I like to use all of it, so having a tool tray is a real plus. Okay, Frick, next.
Next comes from Dean Rampy in Anchorage, Alaska.
Hi, Dean. Oh, yeah, I know Dean.
Could you,
Hi, Dean.
Could you please cover how to add a shoulder vise to an existing workbench?
Yeah. Yeah. Dean, is it the Cosman workbench that you're talking about? I'll address that. So I want to get that vise in here. Kev, do you know what the vices are? You know the big pile of vices as soon as you walk in?
Yeah.
That huge pile. Where's the one that we took out the other day that we did the video on?
Right there on the pile of wood.
On the what?
On the rack.
Right out there. Somewhere on the racks. You know what I'm talking about? That vise? That steel vise. Bring that in. So when we first designed this bench, we had two vices. We had the tail vise down here, and we had a shoulder vise. So if you're talking about the Cosman workbench, all you need to mount this Schoberg vise is just a flat surface underneath, or if you can make it a flat surface. So what we do on this end to accommodate it is just move the bench top far enough down that you have, how much, 14 inches? 13? All you need is 13. Yeah, that's it, Kev, that's it. 13 inches clear underneath. And 13 inches will allow you to go in. Thank you. You're welcome. This has got, I just think that this is one of the greatest finds that we have had in terms of, if you're going to woodwork, even with power tools, you need a decent bench. And a decent bench is almost useless unless you have a good vise. And a lousy vise will do nothing but frustrate you. When we found this, the best part of it is it takes 15 minutes to install. Here's literally what you have to do. This goes on the underside, so I'm going to turn this over and pretend. You're going to put this on the underside of your bench. Now you have to make your own jaw, and you can't, because depending on the thickness of your bench top, your jaw has to allow for that. Where is the jaw that we have? Yeah, please. There was one with parts cut out? Yeah, please. You can come back, Kev. So here's what you have to do. There's two little tabs right here. And these two little tabs are what resist the pulling action when you close the bench. Thank you. Perfect. So there's your jaw. Now what I do when I'm getting it ready to mount it is I put this in place. Oh, I've got to open that up a little bit more. Put this in place. And then I always make sure that this apparatus is not right up against this. You want it back a little bit. So there's about 1/8 of an inch gap. If you accidentally stick it out here a little bit, then every time you clamp something, go grab me one of the new saws, please. The one that's all finished up. You're going to have to grab one that's in the box. What'll happen is you'll put a dent in your wood. So you want to make sure that the end of the vise frame, this part right here, is sitting about 1/8 of an inch in. So these two little tabs, and all you need to cut those with is it's got to be about 1/8 of an inch wide, 3/4 of an inch long. You can do it with a chisel if you have to, but an 1/8 inch router bit, and just drop it down and zip both sides, and that's it. And then I would wind this up tight so that it has righted itself, because you want You want it so that when you crank it tight, it's tight here and it's tight there. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 on each side. I use lag bolts. And you have to take this bolt off in order to do this one, in order to get at it. But that's not a big deal. Huh?
Did you mention putting that under tension?
What? Yeah. Tightening this up. So what I do, thank you, is my mallet right there, Rex. My rubber mallet.
Nope.
Hang on the wall. No?
Nope.
It's out on the floor. No.
Okay, never mind. Just leave that with me, thank you. So I would take my mallet and give it a whack here and a whack here. That'll leave me marks for here. And then this nut, hit that with a mallet, and that'll leave a little mark. And you'll have to come in, you'll just have to drill a little hole right here, about 1/2 inch deep, so that will allow the rest of this frame to sit flat. Okay, so if you're going to mount one on the front, all you have to do, and typically on my bench, can you bring my bench, that other bench in here? I think did we put it up on, Kev, would you go give him a hand? There's a cart out there that should be long enough to mount. Oh, it's already on it. It's already on it. Just be careful because the bench top is just, clear the bench top up, would you please? So, Eric, oh, I got a lot to tell you. Eric, pronounce his name. The H always throws me.
Jarmelson?
The H shouldn't, because the H started with
Well, what's the first? It's the J.
the Jarmelson.
So Eric is one of the most memorable vets that we've had come in our program. How many guys do you know joined the Army at age 50? He turned 59 on the front lines of Afghanistan, and his commander brought out a birthday cake to him. And he got to serve with his son. Eric lives in Newfoundland. He's from British Columbia, but he lives in Newfoundland. He hasn't quite adopted the Newfie accent yet. But this bench is being sent to him. We're shipping it on Monday. Now, and this is another great story. Yeah, right there, that's good. So, Jim and the Kodiak Woodworkers Club, which is in Riverview, New Brunswick, which isn't far from here. They are now the Canadian chapter of the Bench Brigade. And the Bench Brigade are a group of volunteers, civilian volunteers, some of them are military, but they come to us as civilian volunteers who procure all the materials, build a bench, we send them the vise, and then Jack Lane, who's master of who's the commander, Jack Lane and Chris Chahusky organize it so that, if possible, the builder can personally deliver the bench to the vet who has been to our program, and if not, we ship it. Well, they just brought this one down yesterday. It's sitting up in the air just because it's not mounted yet, because we got to take it apart, put it in a crate, and ship it over to Eric. But that's the story behind the bench. Now this, I didn't know that. I guess they did this on purpose. So here's how you make it an ambidextrous bench. You put a row of bench dogs on both sides, and if you're right hand or left hand, and we need that out here in the shop because it accommodates whoever comes. But this is actually, Kev, come here, please. Is your back all right? Jake, can you tell him how far he needs to go in order to let that drop down?
Good.
Okay.
Now bring it toward that.
There. Okay, now reach down like this and just kind of center it.
Oh,
Okay. Right there? Okay. So there's 2 legs that go up here. There's 4 legs. There's one on either side and one on either end. Oh, that's that. So if you're going to add a second vise to it, which if you can afford it, I recommend it. It's really nice to have, especially when you want a plain long board. You can clamp them in this way. All you have to do is go in and cut the profile of the vise out of this stretcher. Take the stretcher right off. And the profile of the vise, if you looked at it, is just, this shape that you're looking at right here. So it's not hard to do at all. And then you have that extra vise right on here. And I make the jaw, that vise is rugged enough that you can make a pretty wide jaw. And the wider your jaw, the more capacity you have to clamp a long board and have it free of obstructions from the bars of the vise. All right, And final note on this, there's we just did a video on this. By the way, how do they get that code? How do they can we advertise that?
No, you can send them to the video.
Okay. How do we get the link? Can Luther put the link up?
Yep.
We released a video a week ago on this, installing this. And at the end of it, there's a 15% discount if you want to get one of these. So here's how I'm going to, I just think this is the best vise. And I tell you where this is coming from. I can't even number how many places I've taught. I think just about there's only 3 or 4 states I haven't taught in. There may be 1 province I haven't taught in, and I've been all over the UK as well. And I say that only because I've had to teach in some of the most miserable vices. I remember teaching this one spot. This was funny but sad. So the average guy coming to my class is going to be in his 60s, early 70s. And I was teaching in this one place, and they put 2 people on every bench. Well, oh my goodness. This one particular vise was so rickety that it would just wiggle like this, side to side. So you had a guy out here on this vise, and you had a guy over here on this vise. Now, people are trying to learn dovetails for the first time. So the guy out here, of course, he's sawing this way, which is making the bench go that way. And I'm watching this poor guy. He's trying to line up his saw, and his board keeps moving back and forth. Oh, I thought, well, terrible. Trying to learn on something like that. So you got to have a good vise. It's so critical. Here's what's so good about it. The frame, instead of being tubes, and tubes, if you figure it out, is very difficult to prevent racking. But these are, what do we call these? Rectangular.
Well, they're a tube.
No, this is not a tube. Rectangular, what would we call this? You didn't call it a tube, what would you call it? I need a metal guy. Let's just tell you, they're rectangular, you can see that. So they make this frame. And there's a phenolic strip right here, which is kind of a waxy plastic. And there's a phenolic strip right here. There's a big heavy piece of metal bar right there. And then there's 2 set screws with 2 bolts with locking nuts. So all you have to do is just wind that in tight until you get it to the point where this will not rack at all. It doesn't move side to side. And now you can wind that in, and it'll tighten up your work, and it doesn't pinch the inside and leave the outside moving. It's just really simple, and it's almost always the case. The simpler the design, the better it is. So, piece of cake to add a second vise on that style of bench. The only thing you have to be careful of, if you build this as per the way we did it, you did it with staples, right? Instead of having to use a bunch of clamps, you stapled each layer. So now you're gonna end up cutting through some staples. So if you're going to cut that out with a jigsaw, which would be cheaper than a bandsaw, because every time you hit a staple with a bandsaw, there goes your bandsaw blade. Whereas fret saw blades, you can even buy some of those ones for your reciprocating saw that will cut through the metal. That's the only downside to it, but other than that, it's a piece of cake. Next question, Frank.
All right, next question comes from
How's our numbers tonight, by the way?
Scott in Peru. We have 512 on right now.
Okay, when we hit 700, I want to introduce Kevin.
Okay. Scott in Peru, Illinois. He says, Rob,
Hi, Scott.
have you ever had any problems lag bolting your vise in MDF?
No, but so here's the problem with MDF. MDF's a great material, but it can be a lousy material. What are you looking at?
It's still considered tube.
Rectangular tube? Okay, thank you. Bar, I wanted to say rectangular bar, but bar would be solid. Right. So MDF is a great product in some applications, and it's absolutely terrible in others. It's great in that it is stable, it's flat, it has a relatively hard-wearing surface, relatively inexpensive. It's lousy if it gets wet. In fact, it turns into a pile of sawdust. Huh? Tony Bahadur is? Well, obviously he just didn't get enough of us all week. Tony Bahadur, is he on there right now?
Yep.
Okay, I have to stop what I'm doing because I got to tell you about Tony. Hello, Tony. So I tried to get some traction locally. And by that I mean, I live 40 miles from the largest military training base in the Commonwealth. And I don't care where the guys come from, but I hate to miss an opportunity right under my nose, too. So we had had 88 combat wounded vets through our program by the time we taught 13 classes. Of those 88, we had 1 Australian, 4 Canadians, 83 Americans. And I run the program in Canada, and it's like, well, that's strange. You only have 4 Canadians? I said, well, couldn't get any traction. By that, I mean, I went to the base. I talked to someone in that department that deals with combat wounded vets. Actually, I got him to come down to my shop, showed him around, showed him what we do. He left, and I don't want their money. I don't want their money, because as soon as the government gives you money, then they own you. So I said, all I need is you to put what I do in front of people who need it. He came down with 2 other fellows, thought it was great. He said, yep, no problem, Rob. Just got to get the approval from Ottawa, and it'll be good. So 3 months I waited, and the response came back. What I was doing was too therapeutic. They couldn't get involved. Now, this wasn't the local guy telling me that. This is what he was told. They're very disheartening. All I wanted to do was present what I have and let the people who are interested try it. Maybe it'll help them. Anyway, so I more or less just walked away from that and said, I'll do it my own way, which is just talk to everybody you run into. So Tony comes knocking on our door one day. We didn't know him, right, before? And he had this big log that he was sanding. Sorry, Tony. You're such a great craftsman now. It's hard to even believe there was a time when you were a novice. Yeah, big log, a big hunk of wood, and he was just all excited and whatever. I said, come on.
Remember what he asked you?
No, what?
So, do you ever make furniture with pallet?
Oh, did he ask me that? I'm getting there. So Tony came 2 or 3 times with his big log of wood that he was polishing up. And he had applied to our program and been accepted. And then COVID hit, and then none of the classes could go. So I said, well, Tony, why don't you just come work here? So we did. And somewhere along the way, he said, how come Canadians, so few Canadians? And I told him what I just told you. So 2 weeks later, he said, well, let me see what I can do. 2 weeks later, Tony had us a room on base. He'd gone out and canvassed the community and found 3 or 4 businesses that provided the food. We loaded all our stuff up. It was a cold January morning. We were up there on a Saturday morning. Unloaded everything in there. We had 22 combat wounded vets there. And out of those 22, now remember, these guys are applying for a position that's being applied for by people all over the world. And 4 of them got accepted to the program. And we don't cherry pick. It's like triage. We take the ones that we think are the most wounded, that need it the most. And Tony has continued to do that. I don't know how many times we've had them down here. We've had them up there again. And so if you're a Canadian soldier that got into our program, you thank Tony. Tony has made this his mission to spread the word, and he does a heck of a job. Go and see him on TV. CBC interviewed him when he was here just a couple of weeks ago. So if you go, I think Luther already has that up on the site, doesn't it? I think so. Anyway, it should be on our site under some category. Hopefully Luther will put it up there. If not, go to cbc.ca and click in, just search Rob Cosman, and you'll see it come up. And the story that talks about, well, it's got a picture of Jim on there from the bench brigade, and then go down to the very bottom. You got to go to the very bottom, and there's a news clip, and you'll see both Tony and Al. Both of them are on there. Al's the other combat wounded vet that works here. So Tony is my friend. Next, what am I talking about? MDF. So the question was, do you ever have any problem putting lag bolts into MDF? So what I wanted to tell you was, this is no strength whatsoever. This is pretty strong. So if you were to put a screw in this way, it's take a lot to pull it out. You put a screw down in here, you're almost always going to split this. You got to know its limitations. You got to work around them. In big chunks like this thing is 60 inches long, 20 inches wide, 3 inches thick. This is one nice big solid table. It even sounds solid when you pound on it. When I put the lags in, you got to make sure. Do we have a lag here, Jake? Do we have a lag bolt? You had that bag out there. Shoot. Kev?
No, it's just a screw.
Kev, would you, you didn't know you were going to have to work so hard. Go over there and find me a lag bolt, please. I'm going to just give you a little tip on putting lag bolts into anything, but particularly MDF. So you want to find legs that got a nice heavy thread, but you've got to measure. I'll use this. So you've got, what's the term, Jake? I can't think. The root. You got to measure the root. So little cheap pair of calipers like this, and you want to measure between at the base of the threads, okay? So that comes up, I would call that 3/16 of an inch. So that means when I drill my hole, I pre-drill my hole for this screw, it needs to be 3/16 of an inch. And then instead of this, the core part of this screw wrecking, thanks, Kev. If you try to fit this through too small of a hole, then it's just going to push and something's going to give. So you would go in there and measure that, and that would be 1/4 of an inch. I might even go a little bit larger. Cut a 1/4 inch long hole, and make sure you go even a little bit farther, because you bottom out, that's bad news too. Nice coarse thread like that means that you've got a fair bit of material between the threads, as opposed to a really close thread, where the other problem with particle board or MDF is that if the threads are too close together, the little bit of material between them just won't hold the threads and it'll pull apart, but this will. So then you can go in there and put that in and it'll hold, not a problem. In fact, if you want, you can even go in and put it all the way in, bring it out, and then put some cyanacrylate down in the hole, which will help stiffen up those fibers in between where the threads have cut, and then put it back in. And you shouldn't have a problem. But probably the biggest issue is people haven't drilled deep enough, and you're torquing on that thing, and you're torquing. It's going to take a lot to push that up through where there isn't a pilot hole, and as you spin it, you're going to loosen up the fiber between those threads, and that's going to, you're going to lose your bite. Okay, next, Frick.
Okay, next one. And I apologize, I've been on the Frick cam for the last 20 minutes, and I didn't even realize.
Hopefully you weren't picking your nose again.
I probably was picking my nose. Dennis in Burlington wants to know, how do you guesstimate... Oh, should I say hi to some vets?
Yes, who do we have?
Okay, so we have Tony, obviously. We have...
Tony Bahadur.
And we have...
Tony, by the way, one tour in Bosnia, one tour in Haiti, and 4 tours in Afghanistan. Tony, 22 years, just retired with the military, medically retired this past year.
All right, and Eric is on, as you mentioned. Sean McDermott, Joe Bright.
Eric's on, yeah. Sean, oh, wait a minute, you got to do them one at a time. I got to talk about them.
Well, you tell the same story every week.
Well, there's new people. I told you about Eric. Who's the next?
Sean McDermott.
Brother Sean. So Sean is the famous Sean, the inventor of the Sean Shim. By the way, they are back in stock. We got 200 in, and I'll bet you half of them are gone. Just shy of 200, just shy of 100. So if you've been waiting for a Sean Shim, they're in. They won't last long. Smart. Way to go, Sean. Who's next? Who else?
Joe Bright.
Joseph. How you doing, brother? Call me tomorrow. We'll have a chat. Joe Bright is, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Joe Bright is a genuine hero. I read his commendation. Saved a whole group of men that were in a truck. Ended up with chemical burns in half his lungs in the process of trying to do that. And he's going through a little rough patch right now. He lost his two dogs, one right after the other, that have been with him for a long time. And his dad's quite sick, so keep Joe in your prayers. Who else?
Philip Lawrence.
Hey, Philip. How you doing, brother? He's there every time.
Doc Bailey is here.
Hey, Doc. Doc Bailey, Navy Corpsman, Vietnam. Awesome. Who else?
Gary Burnett.
Hey, Gary. Gary's missing his buddy. So Gary and Danny Bell were good friends down in Tennessee, and Danny Bell has moved to New Hampshire. So Gary has to be here. He's lonely.
Mark Smith is here.
Hey, Mark. How's Ontario, brother? Mark is a combat wounded vet, still active duty, actually. In fact, his wife just joined. And Mark is the reason why we got so much of this stuff done. Mark built the stairs for us upstairs. He did the new shipping room, tons of stuff. We just replaced the door you broke, the glass door. We got that on last week? Yeah. You're keeping Kevin busy. Who else?
And Kevin Burris for now.
Hey, Kev.
That's it for now.
Kevin Burris, EOD, Explosive Ordnance Disposal. This man has been blown up so many times he's lost count. Kevin's job was to go in and disarm those roadside bombs, those IEDs before they got our guys. And a lot of times they exploded without notice. So Kevin has been, Kevin's a trooper. Kevin is also, I tell this story because I see this picture in my mind every time I say it. Kevin is 6'2" or 6'3", I can't remember. And his wife is 4'10", or is it shorter than that? Known her since she was in grade 5 or 6. Actually, I think younger than that. Good couple. Good to have you, Kev.
And of course, our good friend.
And Kevin brought this to our attention, and our #1 selling product. This is our magic wax for lubricating the bottom of your plane. Thanks to Kevin, we have this. Who else?
I was not a vet, but our good friend Ahmed is here as well.
Ahmed?
Yes.
That's my Ahmed corner over there. It's full of some of the most prettiest wood you'll ever find. I can't even tell you what that corner is valued at, but Ahmed keeps us in fantastic wood. Tremendous craftsman. Ahmed was here in our class as well. He has a son who serves in there as a Marine.
All right, question?
Yep.
Dennis in Burlington says, how do you guesstimate if your workbench is sturdy enough to handle heavy-duty planing?
Well, as long as it doesn't wiggle back and forth like that when you're trying to cut dovetails. You just don't want it to move. So, I don't know. I can't quite figure out that question. How do you determine if it's sturdy enough? Well, let me give you a solution. If it's not sturdy enough, the easiest way to do it, and I would get stuck doing this because we would go into a place where I was teaching and the benches were so wobbly, we would take a piece of plywood and fasten a piece of plywood that would cover from this side to this side and fasten it 3 or 4 screws up here and 3 or 4 screws up there, and that would solve the racking problem. So the quickest way is just to, and a thin plywood, it doesn't need to be thick, but the way plywood works like that will really stiffen things up and prevent that racking. Get my video on the Cosman workbench. It'll take you a weekend, maybe 2 weekends to build, inexpensive, and that's the bench right there. The biggest expense on that is the vise, and we're giving you 15% off on that. Next, Frick. How many people do we have?
639.
That's enough. Give me one more question, then I'm going to introduce Kevin.
Okay, this question comes from Duke Engine. That's his username in
remember.
Verona, Italy. Is it necessary?
Duke.
Is it necessary to have built a workbench before building the final workbench? You always say that. I have limited amount of money and would like to spend directly for building myself one like yours.
Well, yeah, I assume you're talking about this one. So how are you going to hold? You want your workbench to display your skill. How are you going to hold these pieces to cut these dovetails or any of the other complicated parts? So when we very first designed this, the idea was to help people learn how to build a bench like this. But you need a bench to build a bench. So we whipped together this, and it didn't have any vices on it. It was just, we were going to try to do real minimum. It was just 3 sheets of MDF, plywood, all of this. And we used clamps. What did we use at first? Didn't we just put pipe clamps through? We put pipe clamps through to hold pieces in place to dovetail. I mean, if I had to dovetail the end of this board, I just needed to be held in that position. So a clamp stretched. I got all the stuff here. I may as well use it. Eric, I don't want to scratch your bench. So if I had 2 clamps, one on either side, that would suffice. And if you had to, you could get by with that. It's a little bit cumbersome. Well, we got looking at this one day. I can't remember how this happened, but we got looking at this and said, you know what, we could possibly turn this into a bench. And that's where we ended up moving it, because when we first built it, there was the same amount of overhang on both ends. Well, we needed 14 inches in order to mount that, so we moved that over, put the vise on there and thought, holy smokes, this is a fantastic bench. So here's my advice. Build that bench, use it to build this bench, and then that becomes your assembly bench. When it comes to gluing up a chest of drawers, if you've got a nice flat surface like this, you lay the chest of drawers down like that. So instead of trying to hold 6 or 7 clamps that are horizontal, you lay it down like that, you hang your clamps like this, and you pull on the bottom side. This acts like a big caul. So as you're pulling like this with the clamp front and back, the pressure is being applied evenly across here. I would put cauls across the top to even out the pressure on the top side, but it's so much easier having gravity work against you, with you instead of against you. So that's why I say you need a bench to build a bench. Okay, so I assume if you haven't seen this, we don't have any pictures of this. Yeah, we don't have any pictures on our site. Anyway, if you know me, so if you're new to this, this is going to come as a surprise. Huge fan of MASH. History. Went to BYU, and I went to BYU when MASH was on. Got watching it with my roommates and really enjoyed it. Then the military connection with what I do now, it gave even more meaning. And I just thought it was a great show in terms of teaching a message and humor and everything else. So when we brought our PHP, stands for Purple Heart Project, in case you don't know, that's where we bring in combat wounded veterans at our expense. We treat them, we send them home with a boatload of tools and a bench, and it helps them navigate through life with all the burdens they're carrying as a result of combat. When we brought the program back from Ontario to here, and we built our classroom, taking 20 people to breakfast, lunch, and dinner at a restaurant means you're going to lose half your day. And we bring them in at 7 in the morning, and we're here until 10 or 11 o'clock at night. So we decided we would do the meals right there. Well, we needed a kitchen, we put that in, and we needed a mess hall. So we decided to do a MASH mess hall. And we'll give you a view of it, a tour of it. So anyway, there's all kinds of MASH characters on there. And I remember standing in there knowing exactly what I wanted. And Harold Snodgrass was there that day. And I said, oh, I wish I could find somebody that could paint MASH stuff on here. And Harold says, well, I got the guy for you. He said, Kevin Lasky, I'll send him down. Well, Kevin, I'll let him tell his own story, but Kevin used to do small paintings. I brought him in, and here's this wall that was 10 feet tall, 16 feet or a little wider. Yeah, 18? Well, it's the same way, it's the same width as this. So the wall, it's this wall.
It's 20 feet.
20 feet by 10 feet. I remember him doing this on his goatee. Yeah, I don't know, Rob. And he went to work on it. Oh, thoroughly impressed. So by the time we were done, he had Radar and Klinger, Frank and Margaret, Hawkeye and BJ, Igor the cook, Charles and Colonel Flagg, and Colonel Potter, and it's supposed to be Sophie, but it's not. It's my daughter's horse that died, Piper. And anybody that walks in there just says, oh, wow, this is incredible. So that's Kevin. Now, huh? Come over here, Kev. So I'll finish my story, and then I'll let you tell yours. So the other day, not that long ago, only a week or so ago, I said to Kevin, see, Kevin does, since 2000, Kevin does a Christmas card, a different Christmas card. That was 2020. Now, Kevin does a Christmas card every year, and he sends it out to select friends, and then they send one, and they all keep them. So Kevin has a dog and a cat, and they all have their masks on for 2020.
Wait, look in the corner.
Exit?
No, below it.
Down here?
No, below the exit sign.
Exit, sale.
Toilet paper?
Oh, toilet paper.
Yeah. It's hard to get that here.
I'll let you tell the story on those, and then I'm going to tell the story on that. So just how'd that all start? And by the way, Kevin takes commissions too, and his specialty is doing pets. So a lot of people, especially if they've had a pet that died, he'll give them a picture and he'll paint this picture. And he did one for a friend of ours that was just knock your socks off.
This was when it all first started that here. That was my little dog in the window. And once that started, everybody, went off pretty good. So it was something I kind of felt committed to do every year after that. These are, I don't think they're in order anymore. I just go through some of them there.
But you'll always find the dog and the cat in there until, wasn't there a passing of one of the dogs?
Yes, this here dog here passed away, and I got a picture here where he started and the other guy took off.
There's significance to each one of them, though, Kevin.
Yeah.
Like this one, explain that.
Let's give him a few then.
This, now here I got him hidden in with the horses, with the little horses here for Santa Claus. There's my cat there. Sometimes there's like a Montreal symbol or stuff in the background kind of hidden. This is Cluckingham Palace. That's our chicken coop with the dog here. And the glove fell off on his head, looked like a chicken. It's hard to think of something every year. That was Sons of Anarchy year. Dog's over here ringing the bell. This one here, a lot of people said, did you not put the dog in this year? And he's here hidden as a penguin. He was actually given a treat.
I didn't see that. I was looking for that one. I didn't notice.
Everybody thought they were looking for him in the clouds in the sky, and one day he was sitting there and he just reminded me of a penguin. So this was the first year of this dog, and that was the previous year Christmas card with my other dog hanging on the wall.
That's the one that died?
Yeah. So
that was the transition one.
Yeah, you can look through each card and almost. This is the first year. This is the year my dog was dying. So we put a little pup in the picture, and people that knew us said, "Oh no, they're probably going to get a little pup or something." That's my old truck, and that picture. That's my camp, and this is Olive, the other reindeer. Then the dog there, and this is the cat.
This is moose humor. I can hear it in the background.
That one there was just 2007. Santa Claus in the fireplace. Dog there, he's peeing on the snowman. And I brought.
Oh, you get the other paintings.
I'll show you.
And while you're doing them, I'm gonna introduce this.
Yep.
Okay. So, we always try to do something special this time of year. So Luther and I are cooking up one for November that's going to be really good. We're going to introduce you to another living World War II vet. It's going to be awesome. And if you didn't see the ones we did for Herman DeMio last year, you need to go back and watch that. We'll even put a link. Anyway, so with the MASH theme and the upcoming Christmas card thing, I said to Kevin, I said, Kev, could you do a Christmas card just for us? And I had a theme in my head. I said there was an episode of MASH early in the series. Hawkeye was dressed up like Santa Claus, and he was just going in to have the Santa Claus party, and a call came in about a badly wounded soldier in a foxhole under fire. There was no time to change, so Hawkeye grabbed his medical bag, jumped in the helicopter, and off they went. And the next thing you know, Hawkeye's coming down this rope, being lowered, gunfire all around, lowered into this foxhole, and the wounded soldier's looking up, thinking, I must be dead, because here's Santa Claus coming. So I told Kevin what I wanted, and he shows up here the other day, and there it is. This is going to be the 2021 official Christmas card. We're having these printed. We'll have them within about a week's time, and we're going to sell them in packs of 10. You'll know here on the frame of the helicopter is the Purple Heart symbol. Of course, there's Santa Claus, and there's the wounded vets down there, and that's the MASH Bell helicopter, and it's the whole deal. That was awesome. I was thrilled when he showed that to me. So, you know how things work. So I called the company that used to do a lot of, printed my book, and I was talking to the gal and telling her the story, and she's crying. Her brother has had a couple of tours in Afghanistan, and of course, he suffers the same way. So, just the connections are all over the place. So stay tuned. That'll be ready. They're not ready yet, but we'll have them by November 1st. They'll come in packs of 20 with the envelope. Just got the quote the other day. So, and we'll use part of that to pay Kevin. We'll use part of that as a fundraiser for Purple Heart as well. So now back over to Kev.
This was where it all first started 20 years ago.
Give him the mic.
Tell him how you got started. Kevin's a carpenter, by the way.
Yeah, I've been carpentry for most of my life. But,
You have to talk into that thing, by the way.
at a young age, I had a motorcycle accident, and my mom went out and bought me paints, and I started painting ever since then, and got serious through the 80s, I guess, to get into wildlife and stuff like that. But this is where all the Christmas cards started here. That's my little dog at the window, and once this one started, almost everybody expected it year after year. And he ran for 11 years. And then when he passed away, was our new dog's first Christmas. And of course, he's got everything ripped all apart. And the previous year is here hanging on the wall from the other Christmas card. And I brought one other picture of ducks just to show you. That's just one of the wildlife pictures I've done there. Most of them are all been sold, so you only have a few around the house.
Yeah,
so
right.
This is one that's left, I guess.
So if you're interested, if you guys, particularly if you have a pet that you'd like to have immortalized in a painting, the first picture I saw that Kevin did was of a father with his. Tell that story, because the guy in the picture's name is Kevin as well, and I know him because I used to play hockey with him. But I also used to buy lumber from him, so I knew who it was. But it was from the backside. But just tell the story.
Do you want me to get that on my phone? I'll be back in 2 minutes. Or I get that picture, or
we'll get them put it up afterwards. Just tell the story on it.
It was just a friend of mine was getting a picture of his 2 daughters, and the background was something that hadn't been around for 30 years. It used to be his dad's old sawmill, so you could put the 2 together. It was like walking down memory lane. So something you just couldn't do with the camera. So to make a picture like that was quite special, really.
Yeah, really neat. And then he just did one for a friend of ours who lost his son way too early in life. And that was incredible as well. So how do they find Kevin on Facebook?
I'll bring it up right now, actually.
Kevin now has a Facebook page, so if you're interested, you can get a hold of him. He takes on commissions.
So we got him a website too, just to make it a little easier. You just go to mirroredimpressions.com, and it will forward you directly to the Facebook page. And if you send a message to the page, it'll go right to his wife, because Kevin himself is not on Facebook, but you can see some of his work and, send him a message of what you want. I think Tony actually volunteered to have a family painting done. So, here's your...
Tony?
Yep.
Did we give him a raise?
Tony?
Isn't he still on volunteer status? Okay, before we go back to questions, I'll show you this. So we got the new little boxes are all done up. Ian worked on these all day yesterday. Got them ready.
No.
Oh, I can't be bothered trying to figure that out. So here it is. Just wipe the oil off. So I'm going to have John introduce this, but the Len Robichaud 3/4 saw, and my friend Rex Birmingham, who always comes up with the stuff I need at the last second. I said, I got to have a name for this saw. And he came up with the idea 3/4 saw, because it's about 3/4 the size of a regular saw. So we reduced the size of the lettering, which I think just came out perfect. Chris Davenport, who helps me with a lot of this, just pulls this off fantastic. 15 thou blade versus a 20, so you're cutting 25% less wood. 22 TPI, the first 1.5 inches has the cutting face backed off about 30 degrees. So that same technique on my other saw where it allows you to go in, get it started, but it cuts beautifully. We'll give away a bunch some tonight, and we've already got some seconds. I screwed up, so you got lots to look forward to as soon as we get them re-release them. Huh? Well, I do something with them. I put them in backwards. Don't ask me how. Okay, Frick. Next question.
All right, this comes from Anthony.
Kev, are you you're gonna get something?
I'll get the pictures of.
Yeah, and then see if he can do it. That'd be perfect. Sorry.
You ready?
Yep.
Comes from Anthony Bro in West Yorkshire, UK.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear his name.
Anthony Bro,
Anthony in West
Yorkshire, UK.
Hi, Anthony.
He says, when I build my Cosman workbench, I want to trim it with solid wood so I can incorporate a shoulder vise. So my question is, when attacking the solid wood, would it be okay to just glue the top 1 inch to allow wood movement whilst keeping the top flush?
Okay, got to read that one again. I can't see it; it's too small. Read it again. So I got to internalize this.
Okay. So
Cosman workbench.
wants to build a Cosman I want to trim it with solid wood so I can incorporate a shoulder vise.
So I presume when he says trim it, like we did the other day, where we put a solid wood banding all the way around the MDF. Okay.
Okay, so my question is, when attaching the solid wood, would it be okay to just glue the top 1 inch to allow wood movement whilst keeping the top flush?
Oh, yes. Okay. Good question. So I think what he's referring to is when you attach that solid wood band, the solid wood is going to expand and contract. He's suggesting, what if I just glued the top 1 inch so that would remain flush and the bottom could just move seasonally without a problem? And that's actually a good idea. I might even consider using a spline for indexing purposes. So if you took your pieces, cut your spline all the way around the top of your bench, use that same setting to cut a spline, a groove in your pieces, then you could just put splines in there, and when you put it together, it would index itself, so it'd be nice and flush, and that'll also help keep it in that position. So yes, you can do that. That's a good idea. Loren, you doing a cameo? You doing a cameo? You doing a cameo? Oh, no cameo. Okay, bye. Go ahead, Frick, next.
Okay, next one comes from Brandon Zane in Wilton, Connecticut.
Hi, Brandon.
He says, when building the top of a Scandinavian-style workbench, should the pieces be face-glued vertically or edge-glued horizontally, and how will either be affected by seasonal movement?
So he's talking about building this bench and these pieces. So first of all, it's going to be a lot easier to get your width this way.
You mean your width?
Your width this way by gluing. If you glue them face to face to face, you can use 8/4, you can use 6/4, you can use 4/4, and you're going to build up and get your full thickness. If you did it the other way, now you got to go out and try to find 12/4 maple. Well, that's A, going to be expensive, B, hard to find, and C, expensive. So you're better off, I think, taking whatever, get it as thick as you can just to reduce the amount of pieces you have to use and glue it face to face. Is the seasonal movement going to be much different? I don't think so. Not this way. I mean, there's in 3 inches. You got to remember, we're talking about moisture changes in your shop during the cycle of a year. If your shop is heated, air conditioned, you're not going to get that much movement. And on 3 inches of wood, it's going to be pretty minimal. So I don't think I would worry about it. I don't think there'd be enough of a difference to measure, whether you did face to face or edge to edge. Okay, next, Rick.
Next one comes from Steve in Sudbury, Ontario.
We giving away any hats tonight?
Sure.
We'll give away some hats. Steve in Sudbury, Ontario?
Yeah, he said, what woods are suitable for a workbench slab? Maple is the gold standard, but would poplar or birch be suitable?
Birch, but so what you want is you want the most stable wood. And I think if you were to look up birch versus maple on how much it moves, going from 6% to 8%, I think you'll find maple be more stable. Poplar's easier to find, but it's not a very hard wood. Although it's a deciduous tree, it's not terribly hard. So I would probably go maple number 1, birch number 2. I was just going to tell them something. Shoot, I lost my train of thought. Okay, keep going.
Daniel O'Connell from Ireland.
Hey, Daniel.
He says, I wondered what your thoughts were on how to determine the height of a hand tool workbench in relation to the user, or is there a standard height?
Well, there really isn't a standard height, and to make it even more difficult, I'm pretty sure Frank Claus, I think Frank is 6 feet, he might be 6'1", I think 6 feet, and I'm going to compare him to me. I'm all of 5'7.5". Frank's bench, if I remember correctly, was 31 inches, I think, tall. You can find it in the workbench book by Scott Landis. My bench is 36.25 inches tall. So short guy, tall bench, tall guy, short bench. So How do you figure that one out? If you do a lot of planing, it would be nice to have a low bench because you can get your weight over on top of it. If you're doing a lot of dovetail work or stuff in the vise, then it would be nice to have an elevated bench because you're not having to bend over. How do you find something happy in between? Well, I used to have feet on mine so I could lift it up. I think we did that twice in the whole time that I had this bench, and we finally took them off because I never used it. So, you know, just the nice thing about this bench is if it's not tall enough, Kev, can you run over there, please?
And grab those.
No, never mind, they're right here. Relax. Here's what we do. Now this is, we have to accommodate different sized people that come to our class. So if somebody's tall, all we did is took 4 pieces of plywood, same width as the feet on the bench, and screwed and glued a couple pieces on there, and it fits snug enough. You set your one under each foot, and you raise your bench up, in this case 4 inches, 3 3/4 inches, so whatever amount. So you can, if you work off of a standard height, whatever that is, you can make subtle adjustments to tailor it. If you build your bench and you realize, oh, this is too short, I need a little taller, easy fix. And so speaking of Santa, as I'm looking over here, I always have to acknowledge Santa Claus. Santa Claus is someone I have never met, never spoken to, only through email. He wants to remain anonymous, and he has financed a lot of what we do. He covers a lot of the costs of the prizes that we give away. He's a Vietnam vet himself and a huge supporter of the Purple Heart. Because of him, I was able to get this started with Jesse way back in 2016. So Santa and Mrs. Claus, I now have a hat I can tip to you. Go ahead, Frick.
All right, next question comes from Jerry Weeks in Comfort, Texas.
Hey, Jerry.
He says, what are the best screws to use when attaching to MDF?
The ones we sell. How's that for an answer? I'll show you the difference. There's a typical one. I need a number 8 because I want to try to compare apples to apples. Okay. So here's the typical screw that you find at the hardware store, and here's the ones that we sell. They're Robertson, and you can use them with Phillips as well. They've got a self-drilling tip on them. You see that? And they've got little ribs underneath here that will help to countersink it. But if you notice, look how much farther away the threads are. This is probably the most important part. The gap, remember I was telling you this when we were talking about the lag bolt. The gap between the threads, the bigger that is, the stronger that material is going to be that's left behind and resist pulling out. And the closer it is, particularly in things like particle board or MDF, the weaker that is. So you want coarse threads, they go in fast, and they pull up tight, and I'm sure there's a significant difference in the amount of force taken to pull that out versus to pull this out, and all because of the amount of material between the threads. So those are Robertsons. You can find them on our site. My kids box them up for you, and they need to be kept working. So order up. Next, Frick.
Okay, comes from Matthew in Kingston, Ontario. He says, I live in an apartment
Hi,
and
Matthew.
usually move once or twice a year for work. Do you have any tips on building a smaller size bench that is sturdy and can be knocked down flat, maintaining the weight needed for planing and other rigorous actions? Thank you.
Right there. Jake, what do we put that in for? How big's the box when we pack that up? We box that up.
66.
When we ship this to Eric, it will be in a box
A little bit longer.
that is
A little bit longer. I'll keep going.
probably 66 inches long. It will be 21, 22 inches
No,
wide,
longer than that because the feet are bigger. Probably 24.
and it won't be any more than 6 inches deep. So if you can envision a box 6 inches by 5 feet by a couple of feet, and that all folds up. This is the top is bolted with 4 lag bolts to the base. The stretchers, these things, there's a bolt and nut on the end of each one of these. So So 8 of those, 4 legs, and it's apart. And it'll all fold up together and easy to ship. That's your best. It's easy, piece of cake. I should mention the bench dogs. Where are the bench dogs? We got to make sure we send the bench dogs to Eric. These are drilled for 1-inch round bench dogs, and they've got a canted face on them, so you can just drill the hole perpendicular.
Somebody asked the question of why you recommend the 1-inch over 3/4 when 3/4 is so popular.
Well, we actually have 3/4. We'll have up on our site here in no time. But I like the 1-inch. It's just a little easier to hold on to. They've got a nice spring on them. They're longer than the 3/4 tend to be, and they got a little more flat face to hold your work against. And it's not a huge deal, but the wider the face, the less it's going to bruise or compress into the wood. So, and they're aluminum. And that just means if you run into them with your bench plane, you're not going to destroy your plane. You wouldn't do it on brass either, so I guess it's 50-50. Next, Frick.
Next one comes from Tyson in Mill Valley, California. He says for a hand tool workbench, how lightweight is too light? How thin can I make the top? Flat sawn or quarter sawn for a laminated top?
Okay, take this one at a time. So, of course, if you're going to hand plane, if you have the option of bolting your bench to the floor, then that's not a big deal. Otherwise, you need to have some weight. Nothing worse than having the bench moving all over. My first bench that I built, which is in the other room, is just like this. And I remember it called for the top to be 2 3/4 inches thick, or 3 inches. I can't remember.
Stop. Yeah, stay there.
What's the matter?
We're going to try and focus this camera and stay still.
And I didn't have access to that thick of lumber. And I was thinking, the plans had called for a plank to be X wide and that thick. And I just remember thinking, what overkill. I mean, there's no way you need something that thick on a bench. So the thickest I had was 1 3/4. So I made the top out of 1 3/4. Well, you could literally push down on the bench from this end. The support of the legs are over here. Mine might have been a little bit farther out. But you could actually make it flex. Lesson learned the hard way. So you need the mass. I wouldn't have my bench top. If you have an unsupported section like we have, I mean, on this bench, in order to accommodate that vise, you've got 13.5 inches of the bench sticking out. On this bench, I have 20 inches of the bench sticking out, cantilevered out beyond the edge of the support of the base. So if you're going to do something like that, you need to have 2.5 inches in thickness anyway. That 3-inch MDF is plenty strong. If you had a bench that the top was really close to being supported everywhere, you could probably get away with a lot less. He needs a massage. Okay, next, Rick.
Next one
You guys miss all the behind-the-scenes stuff.
comes from John in Quispam, Sis.
John and Chris Pam, so far away.
Yep, about a half an hour. What would you recommend as a Moxon vise?
What would I recommend as?
Yeah.
I'm not understanding the question.
Or is,
Read it again.
it just says, what would you recommend as a Moxon vise?
Oh, if you're asking me brand for the hardware, I really don't have an opinion.
We will soon.
Yeah, we will soon. That's right too. We're looking at getting some.
Actually,
What's that?
I'll combine this with Mark Robson's from Michigan, his question, and he says, what do you think of Moxon vices, or what Benchcrafters offers?
Well, first of all, what's a Moxon vise? It's really simple. It typically is something that you clamp onto the top of your bench. You've got a piece of wood like this, and you've got 2 threaded rods, and you trap your board. You trap your board like that by tightening up on the nuts on the 2 rods. So, in essence, what it's giving you, and you've often heard me talk about the big advantage of this Scandinavian style vise is you don't have any obstructions in here. And that's the advantage of a Moxon. Now, you do have to be able to lift it up and drop it down in, which may or may not be more hassle than you want to deal with. It's an inexpensive way to get yourself a vise that will at least hold your workpiece securely while you're dovetailing if you don't have a good vise. But it's a little bit cumbersome. I've not been a huge fan of it. But we are looking at possibly having some hardware. So I always want to show you these two. Kevin, I forgot. Kevin also does walking sticks. You want to come up here and tell them about your walking sticks?
They just happened to be the first two I ever did. This is one I kept for myself. And
Can't see
The
it.
camera's up there.
I was cutting, me and my neighbor was cutting a tree down one day, and it came like this and swung right on down, flattened Carol's apple tree, eh? So I said, well, the best I could do is make her a walking stick out of one of the branches. So that's the little dog that's in the Christmas cards there.
Too close. Go wide.
Too close? Where?
Back towards the bench, in the corner of the bench.
Can they see well?
Yeah, they can see it. There's a, yeah.
And I had done, one of my favorite stories was, I'd leave a knot on the top of the stick here, and they did the dog's head on it. And at Christmas time, the girl that bought painting videotaped her dad, and he had tears in his eyes because it was his dog that passed away.
Oh, really? And you made
Makes
this?
you feel
Oh,
good.
yeah. Well, that's
So
cool.
now when he goes for a walk, his dog's always with him. It's kind of neat.
And who's this?
That's just something out of my head. It was just a wood spirit.
Well, there's some interesting
I think
stuff
it
in
was
your
the
head.
First time I tried wood carving, pretty much. Yep.
That's cool. I like that story. And don't forget that we have our little models are gone. See if you can get the boys to come in with model their sweaters. Moose found a source for these little happy sweaters. I think it's such a cute name for them. And that's one of the prizes we're gonna give away tonight. And my two youngest grandsons wear them all the time. So if that's proof you need that the kids actually enjoy wearing them. They're light, but they're warm enough. We'll see if we can get them brought in. Next, Rick.
Okay, next question comes from...
PatSecretGarden.com if you don't happen to win.
Okay, so the next question comes from Mark in Michigan. He says, what's the
Hi,
best
Mark.
way to get power electricity to your bench?
Oh, not the way we do it. So Jake's got this thing on the floor that I can't get my wheeled carts to go over. I'm tripping over it all the time. I wish there was, we're on a concrete slab. In my last shop, I was on the second floor. Well, in my second to last shop. So I had the power coming up underneath and had a power bar on there, which was great. You can drop it down from the ceiling. Whatever, I don't want to be tripping over it. So I don't like what we currently have, and I'm hoping at some point we'll come up with a better solution. But any way of keeping it out from underneath your feet and somewhere in there. I'm not a big fan of screwing stuff like that to my bench, but I suppose I'd make the exception for a power bar. Have we got them? So as soon as we switch cameras, we'll show you the happy sweaters. Next question, Frick.
David Moore in Austin, Texas.
David?
He says, I have heard Rob talk about flattening a workbench top. Can Rob tell us more about this procedure?
Yeah, I'm going to do it fairly soon because this is in need of being surfaced. Did we do that as a YouTube, Jake, or was that on the online workshop? We did? So if you go on my YouTube channel and search it, you'll find a video we did where we flattened the top. And if you're a member of my online workshop, we did 3 or 4 episodes going in and flattening the top. If you're going to do it by hand, you're going to want a big jointer, either a 7 or an 8, and spend 6 months in the gym before you start because it's a lot of work. And, wow, where do you start? Well, first thing you want to do is go through and identify the problems. So either using a winding, some kind of a straight edge. You can even use your bench. Take your, I didn't mean to say bench. Take your plane and run it like so. And just look and see. And and then mark it out with a, don't use a regular marker because you can't get the marks out, but you can use a dry erase and just go over the whole thing and just pick out your high spots and then go in and plane them. Now, your best bet is to plane across the grain because it'll tear, but it won't tear in deep. And once you go through and do that and identify it, then it's a matter of starting on one side and just planing front to back. It's a lot of work. Go watch the video. I can't just give you 5 minutes worth of suggestions, but watching the video will tell you exactly how. And have 3 or 4 blades that are all sharpened up, because it's, oh my goodness, I dread having to do it because it's such a big job. We got another model coming? Why don't we do one at a time? Because keeping the two of them together. So, Moose, you want to tell the story? How this came to be?
Well, wait, got him some.
Is this one? Is this on?
Should,
Yeah, we have a sales rep who picked up a new line of sweaters that are actually handmade in Peru. They're 30% alpaca wool. So if you have a child that's allergic to standard wool, that's a benefit. But they're really, really cute. Lots of little happy animals.
Who's cute?
Yeah.
Oh, the sweater.
Yeah, no matter who you put it on, they're cute, right?
You like it? He's camera shy. Hey, wait. Are you camera shy? Tell them. Do you like your happy sweater?
Yeah. Good.
But we
ass.
make you wear it,
Good,
right?
good.
We put glue on it so that you'll keep it on.
He begged for one.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah. Well,
And over.
it's for Cooper. It's an unhappy sweater.
So over here, this is size. What size is this?
That's size 6. I think he's got.
Size 6. And Cooper, how old are you?
5.
You're 5.
Yeah.
So if you have a 5-year-old or around there, that'll fit. And what's your name, mister?
Frick. Oh, you're talking to
They don't come in my size.
What's your name, mister? How old are you?
2.
No.
I don't know, Frick. We saw you in a naughty girl T-shirt that was pretty snug. We might be able to get a happy sweater on you.
Yeah,
You're 3. And this is his. Is this your happy sweater? Do you like it? Does it keep you warm? You like it zipped like that? You like it zipped up tight? And do you wear your hood like this when it's cold out? Yeah. All right. Models are done. So if you don't get lucky in the draw, you can get one. Go to Moose's site, patssecretgarden.com, and we're giving away tonight is your choice. The famous dead cat sweater. It's getting cold that time of year. One of the golf shirts with the Purple Heart logo, or one of our happy sweaters. Okay, next question. Thank you, Moose, for bringing that.
Obviously, I'm not ready.
Oh, Frick's not ready? Oh. So is there another question?
Well, there might be, but
Managing
who's gonna read it?
Nobody. No. What can I tell you? There it goes.
We need that.
Is it better to plane the bench during the humid or dry season?
Not a big enough difference.
Dry season, there's less to plane.
No. Not a big enough difference. If there is a big difference, you're in trouble if you've got that much of a swing. Worth investing in air conditioning or at least a dehumidifier and trying to keep the humidity level constant. But not in the humid season because you'll sweat too much. Next one, Frick.
Quick question. Fred wants to know about how much does a
Fred?
Yeah, in Yamhill, Oregon.
Yam Hill. I know where that is.
About how much does a bench weigh?
About how much does a bench weigh? Well, the Cosman bench weighs, what do we figure, just under 200? And this one probably is closer to 300. So, in that range. I think that may be more closer to 175. It might be 200 when we actually crate it up.
On the topic of workbenches, I don't think anyone's brought it up yet, but the Wood Whisperer, Mark, is auctioning off his bench.
Oh, right. Did they hear you?
No.
Did you hear Jake?
No.
You can't hear me?
Okay.
Rick, can you hear me?
Only if you yell like that.
So Mark, from the Wood Whisperer, Mark Spagnola, contacted us just recently, and he's decided it's time for a new workbench. So he is going to auction off his bench, and guess where the proceeds are going? Way to go, Mark. he is donating the proceeds to the Purple Heart Project, and I thought that was awesome. We just found that out just a few days ago. So make sure you visit his site, The Wood Whisperer, and I'm not sure how he's going to do the auction. I'm sure it's going to be online, but I don't know if he's announced it yet or not. I hope we're not jumping the gun, but I didn't bring that up. Jake did, so it's his fault. Go ahead, Frick. Next one. I got to mention this too. So one of the guys that I play hockey with, his name is James, and he and his mother and father just recently bought a restaurant called Swanas in St. John, New Brunswick, Thai food, and contacted me, I guess it was about a month ago now, one day. And he said, Rob, we're having a grand opening tonight, and I've reserved a table for you and your wife. I said, oh, thank you very much. He said, we've decided to support 2 charities through our business, and yours is one of them. Well, it was awesome. So we went in, and there was an auction. And then he came here last week, and he presented me with a check for $5,000 for the Purple Heart Project. So I just think, you know what? Not only that, but he contacted me when we were having our class back in September and said, Rob, I'd love to feed your guys a meal if that's okay. So he said he provided all of the food for 20 people one night, and it was fantastic. We go there on a regular basis because the food is that good. And he's just, you know what? He's only 28, same age as you?
No,
He's 30. But talk about having his head in the right spot and his heart in an even righter spot. So if you're ever in St. John, New Brunswick, you know where to eat. Big thank you to James and his family. Next, Rick.
All right, next one comes from Lauren Callum in La Crosse, Wisconsin.
Hey, Lauren.
Says, I want to
Whether
build...
it's Loren. Was that Loren or Lauren?
No, Lauren, L-O-R-E-N.
Okay, Lauren.
I want to build a new bench. I plan to move to a new workshop within the year. The floors are never level. How should I re-level the bench? How should I re-level the bench level in its new location? My current shop is very unlevel. Ordinary shims seem so unstable.
Yeah, they are. So what we've done, and there's a drawback to it, is we simply took a heavy 3/8 lag bolt, bored a hole up through, put the lag bolt in, and then you just go in there and just lower or either bring the lag bolt in. You can do it when the bench is standing, right? You just get a wrench underneath there, and you got a level on here, and you adjust those. The downside to that is, if it's on a wooden floor, the bolt heads are going to scratch the floor a lot. If it's on a smooth floor like this, it makes it really slippery because the steel on concrete or tile will need some way of supporting it. Now you can buy those with rubber heads on them. I don't know where to get them, but I've seen them, and that would make sense. The other option would be level it that way, but then somehow block your bench. In my last bench, second to last shop, what I had is I had two pieces of 3/4 plywood that I cut out in the shape of a big U, and I screwed them to the floor so they went around this leg and around that leg, which kept the bench in place. And if I needed to move the bench, I could just pull it over, and it would slide out from those U's, and then do whatever I needed to. But putting the lag bolts in is the best way of securing it, but you got to find a way to keep it from moving around. Next, Rick, good question.
Next one comes from Mike Herman in Wyoming.
Hi, Mike, in Wyoming?
Yep.
Where?
Wetland?
Don't know that one.
Or is it spelled Wheatland? I don't know. Wyoming. Anyway, where did you get your plans for your Scandinavian workbench from?
So my first bench that I built, I took it right out of Scott Landis's book, the Workbench book, published by Taunton Press. I think it's back in print. And it was Frank Claus's bench. And Frank will tell you that's a Scandinavian design. My second bench, third, what is this? I know this is my second, but I built another one in between. So this is at least my third bench that I've had. This is a combination of it's Frank Claus's bench up to here. And then I think it was, this vise came from, I can't remember his name. Hopefully I'll come up with it. It's in the same book. And I just combined the two. Now, I'll tell you the reason why. The traditional tail vise is a pain to build. It's a rectangular framework that has to so susceptible to wood movement. And in order to get it exact, so that there's no slop at all, on a humid day, it tightens up and you can't move it. Michael Fortune, that's who it was. Michael Fortune, I'm pretty sure his bench had what's called this wagon wheel vise. I don't know why they could call it a wagon wheel vise, but it's just a lot easier to build and a lot better. I mean, on this traditional Scandinavian tail vise, you really can't plane on this piece. So this back corner becomes useless because it just is not designed to resist downward force. On this one, I can. So that's the reason why. But pick up that book on workbenches. It's excellent. And I think there's at least 10 different styles of benches in there, and it's got all the plans for them.
Jack Lane said we need a couple volunteers.
Who?
Jack Lane.
Oh yeah. Okay. Hold on just a second. Bob Abbott is on tonight. Now. Oh, thank you, Moose. Is Bob on? I think we delayed this. So. What I decided, I got talking to Bob Abbott. Bob is how would you describe Bob?
He's not here, by the way.
Oh, he's not? Well, can't talk about him then. Anyway, we have some of the vets that have taken our class that are now running businesses where they're making wooden items. And we're going to give them a platform to give them exposure so that we can help their businesses get kickstarted. And Bob makes a couple of really nice cutting boards. So I ordered some from him. And they're in the mail. So the next time we video, which will be in 2 weeks, we'll talk about this and kind of launch this have a little soft launch of this support a vet business. And I'm not asking you to buy something just because they're a vet. They do good work. And if you like it, consider buying it for Christmas presents or whatever else. But when you see you'll be impressed when you see these cutting boards. And what did you tell me, Frick?
What?
Well, somebody said something.
No,
Oh, you did. Oh, Jack. Lee needs volunteers where?
Montana, Wyoming, and the Dakotas.
Okay, so here's a call out. If you want to become a member of the bench brigade, volunteer to build a bench for a combat wounded vet, we need volunteer in Montana. Volunteers in Montana, Wyoming, and North Dakota. The Dakotas, North and South Dakota. So if you're in that area and you'd like to participate, contact Jack directly or contact us and we'll forward it to Jack. How's it going to be easy to do that? Us? So how are they going to contact us?
Same way
They put it in the comment section. We have no access to who they are after the fact. Contact us. So if you go to the site, RobCosman.com, under contact us, send us your contact information and I will forward it to Jack. And a big thank you. Next, Frick.
All right, next one comes from Clifford in South Africa.
Clifford in South Africa. I don't have a South African accent I can mimic, so just howdy, Clifford.
Is it better to make your workbench top from a hardwood or a softer wood?
That question is not as easy, is not a quick answer that you might think. Yes, you'd want it as hard as possible for it to wear well, but like me, you're going to have to flatten it at some point. And I wouldn't build my bench top out of Jatoba. Ugh. Nor would I build it out of pine. Pine would be easy to plane and flatten, but it would be terribly useless in terms of a bench top because it would just dent every time you touch it. So maple fits the bill because it's a hard wood, but at the same time it's relatively easy to plane. If you have problems sharpening your plane, check out my YouTube called 32 Seconds to Sharp. That's not clickbait. It takes 32 seconds. If you get the gear, and I'm going to have to give a bit of a commercial here. I get asked a lot questions about how to sharpen. And I tell people, I said, look, if you can, what am I talking there? You can use your wallet to get you a certain distance. Here's where you're starting. Here's perfect sharpening ability. You can buy up to about here. Buy the gear that I use. It's not a sales pitch, just I'm answering your question. Buy the gear that I use. Then all you have to do is paint by number. Do exactly what I do, and within a very short time, you'll be right here where you want to be. The problem people encounter is when they have inferior stuff, maybe something they got at a garage sale or their grandfather didn't want anymore, so they left it to them, and they try to apply what I teach and what I do to inferior gear, and they never get there, and they wonder why. So you got to have the right stuff. Why do I use what I use? Because it's the best I can find. and I'm not interested in second best. I don't care what it costs. The reason I say that is your stones and your ability to sharpen dictate how well all of these work. These are absolutely useless if they're not sharp. They're paperweights at best. So if you have to, save the money until you can afford to buy the good stuff. Don't buy second best. You'll only regret it. Of course, my motto is buy it so that you only cry once. Next, Frick. What was the question anyway? I go
is
down
it better
these
to make
rabbit holes all the time.
Is it better to make your workbench from hardwood?
Oh
or
yeah,
softwood?
yeah. So and then I'm going to talk about sharpening. Yeah. So I would want to be in and around maple. So you know what? Beech is used. European beech is used a lot. We don't have access to that here, not readily. I may live in an area where maple's plentiful. If I was down in the southeastern United States, I'd probably even consider using southern yellow pine. It's hard as a rock, but planeable. Birch, I mentioned. I think you want close porous wood. You don't want something with big open pores like oak because it'll be filthy in no time and it'll look terrible. So, Jake, can you go over and look at the Janka scale thing and give me some, see if you can pull out some examples of, where did he live? In Africa?
South Africa, yes.
See if you can find something in the African woods that would be close to maple and we can throw him some suggestions. Just yell when you get it. Good question. Next, Frick.
Okay, next one comes from...
Camera's here, Frick's over there, so I'm always looking over there where the noise is coming from, but I'll try to remember to look over here at you.
Okay, so this one comes from David Forrest in Clare Valley.
What a name for a woodworker.
Yeah, and he's
David
from
Forrest.
South Australia.
My last name should have been Wood.
He says, is it an advantage to have the legs of the bench flush with the sides of the bench top? From what I can see, most of your benches don't appear to have this feature.
No, good question. Read it again for me, please.
Is it an advantage to have the legs of the bench flush with the sides of the bench top? From what I can see, your benches don't appear to have this feature.
Yeah. So, is there a disadvantage? I don't think so. For one thing, it would be awkward to have it right there. It would be like having no toe kick on your kitchen cabinets. You know, you'd be always leaning over like this. So there's a toe kick that allows you to get close to your work. Well, this allows me to get close to my work. Now, where it is a slight disadvantage, and what we're going to compensate for it, because we're doing a video on that soon, is we go in and we're going to put a filler piece in here, top to bottom. Huh? What?
Can I see that?
Am I in the camera based on where that is positioned?
No.
No? All right. So we're going to put a filler. I'll show you that in a second. Did you find me one for it, Jake?
Yeah.
What? So if you're in South Africa and you want to build a bench, and you're listening tonight,
Couple recommendations.
what do we find?
Hang on. Anything in the realm of Bengay, which is like Renge with a B.
Bengay,
Panga Panga.
Panga Panga,
OPP.
OPP.
Your camera's...
Sounds like, what?
Afromosia.
Afromosia, that's common.
Bili and Sapile.
Sapili, which are all right around what on the Janka scale?
Between 1600 and 1400.
So the Janka scale, in case you don't know, is the gauge for determining how hard wood is. On metal, you're referring to the Rockwell scale, and what that is they push a little round BB into the metal with a certain amount of force, and they measure how deep it penetrates, and that determines how hard the metal is. Something similar for wood. So 14 to 1600 is the range that we're giving you as a suggestion based on maple. So when we're back up, I'm going to show you over here to talk about. Okay, next question while we're waiting on this, Rick. Please remember, I didn't bring the back. Never mind. Are you up and running?
Yep.
Okay, so here's what I was going to suggest. We're going to go in and we're going to put a filler strip in that'll be flush here down to the bottom, and it'll have holes in it that you can take your bench dog and stick your bench dog in there, and that'll help support a long board that you want to plane. And that's the only real advantage that I see to it. I wouldn't want them out there all, and we're going to put them on with screws so that you can take it off so it's not always there, because it would get in my way. Okay, Frick, next.
Yeah, John LaRock in Canberra, Australia.
Hi, John, in Canberra?
Canberra, yeah. What are your thoughts on using a wood top instead of MDF, and how would you maintain the wood top?
Well, you got to remember, the whole idea behind the Cosman workbench was material readily available, flat. That's the nice thing about MDF. MDF essentially comes to you flat. Inexpensive. MDF is nowhere near as pricey as wood. In fact, let's just figure this out. So 20 by 3 by 6. Let's say it's, no, it's not. Can't do that. I can't do math like that. Wait till I use my calculator. I'm going to give you the board foot equivalent. Jake, do you remember what a sheet of MDF costs? So we have 20 inches times 60 inches equals 1,200 times 3 inches equals 3,600 divided by 144. So you have 25 board feet in this. So 25 board feet at maple, let's say maple is probably averaging $9 a board foot. So you're looking at $225 if you were using maple, and then you have to factor in a waste factor of at least 1.4. So $315 if you can get it $9 a board foot. Let's say $300 for the maple to make this top. You can't go out and buy 25 board feet if that's all you need. You need a waste factor. You got checks, you got knots, whatever. Now, the MDF, one sheet of 1-inch MDF, which is what that is, in case you didn't know, you take your sheet of MDF and you take two 20-inch strips and you cut two 60-inch pieces, and the pieces left over you put in the middle, so you end up having a joint line. You can see it right there, and that gives you your enough MDF for one top. And I think a piece of 1-inch MDF, that's actually thicker, isn't it? Because they couldn't get 1 inch at the time. One of those sheets is 1 inch and an eighth.
Oh, I thought so. The middle.
So
two of them.
$315 versus maybe $60 for a sheet of 1-inch MDF. So quite a big difference in price. And the idea behind that was, how can we get this made as inexpensively as possible? And the fact that it's flat was the big thing. If you're using solid wood and you're a beginner, that's going to be a challenge to accurately glue up something that big and then flatten it. Oh, that's an intermediate level task, not a beginner task. So that's the reason. If you want to do it and if you got the capacity, go right ahead. More power to you. I just think the MDF solves the problem. And I harp on this. You got to get a bench ASAP. You can't do anything until you have a decent bench to work on. So that has to be your first task. And we designed that. Luther came up with a great idea that eliminated the need for clamps. So a staple gun and a little compressor is about all you need as far as equipment. Very little. Well, I shouldn't say that. You need a circular saw or something for ripping it up, but it's doable. So idea, very few tools. And a very basic skill set. Next, Frick.
Next one comes from Dave Ducharme in McKean,
Hey,
Pennsylvania.
Dave's been a huge supporter of us, and Dave was in our class up in Niagara Falls back in 2015, I think.
In order to end mount the Schoberg vise,
Ducharme.
how much length is needed between the end of the bench and the bench leg?
I'm sorry, I was thinking something else. Say that again, please.
In order to end mount the Schoberg vise,
Oh.
how much length is needed between
14.
the end of the bench and the bench leg?
Actually, that's not correct. You can get away with less than that. 13, that one is
13 and a half.
13 and a quarter. I think we say 14 so that you got a little bit of a buffer. 14 inches. Next, Frick.
Mike Anderson in Sacramento, California says,
Hi, Mike.
"What do you think
Been
about
to Sacramento.
what do you think about using 1/8 inch tempered hardboard as a workbench surface.
You mean as just a cover over top of that? That's fine. I mean, it just adds another something to do. The nice thing about that is if you destroy the top over, I mean, we use these in our shop. How many do we have over there? 5, 6 benches?
Not that many. I think 4.
4 benches. We have 4 benches over there, just exactly like that. And these are being used every day, 8 hours a day in an industrial manufacturing capacity.
Just ask Tony.
Just ask Tony why.
Tony's in the chat.
Tony, how many benches do we have over there? Tell them, would you?
Not that. About the abuse they
Oh,
can
the
take.
abuse that he gives them, yes. And they survive. You cut into it, you scratch it, you take a little bit of cyanacrylate, wood glue, or super glue, put it on there, it'll stiffen it right up, just flush it off, and you're good to go. After every class we teach, they always end up leaving, somebody's managed to hit it with their dovetail saw, and I just go in, clean it up, put cyanacrylate in all the cuts, flush it off, and it's like new. So if it gets destroyed, make another top. It's not a big expense. And I don't know if having the extra layer of hardboard. The hardboard is dark, which makes it hard to see sometimes. That's another reason for maple too, by the way. It's nice and it's bright, it's light, easy to spot things. You'll appreciate that as you age.
Forgot to say hi to Pete Ambrose. Pete Ambrose is here.
Pete Ambrose. Vietnam right through to the first Gulf War. Yep, it seems to me Pete's son is a vet as well. So Pete was one of my most memorable students. Where's Pete's dovetail, Jake? We need to give it some. Oh, right here. It's right here. Not far. Well, this isn't a dovetail. This is a miter joint, according to Pete. Pete sent that to me after he took the class. Strategically placed those flags. Pete is a great guy. Pete, I've missed you. You haven't been around lately. I trust everything is well. And Pete lost a son to an illness not that long ago. So my sympathy and condolences to you and your family. I mean that, Pete. Great to have you. Anyone else, Rick?
That's it for now that I can see.
Pete is down in Louisiana, in Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, one of the three. No, he's in Mississippi because who's in Louisiana? Is right beside him. Cool Ray. Yeah. I smile when I think of you two guys because it was such a memorable class. Rick, next.
Next question comes from Julian Cleek in Wales. United
Julian
Kingdom.
in Wales. You're up late, brother.
Hi, Rob. Can you talk about bench dogs and their fitting? I want to fit a tail vise and bench dogs to my bench, but only have 3-inch overhang on the right side of the bench. The slab is 2-inch by 3-inch laminated pine and very stable.
Okay, read that again, please. I got a lot to digest.
Can you talk about bench dogs and their fitting? I want to fit a tail vise and bench dogs to my bench, but only have 3-inch overhang on the right side of the bench. The slab is 2-inch by 3-inch laminated pine and very stable.
Do you understand what he means with the overhang? Is he talking about here? He said the right side of the bench, so is he talking about here? I'm not quite catching what you're asking. I will tell you this, that your bench dogs tend to stay very close to this side of your bench. The only reason, as I mentioned earlier, that there's 2 rows of bench dogs is so that if you're left-handed, you can use it. If they're right-handed, you can use it. So there's no reason, I've never had a reason to want bench dogs over there. So you keep your bench dogs here, right underneath where you're going to plane. My most comfortable work surface is probably within about 8 inches of this edge. So that's why the bench dogs are there. In terms of not having a lot of distance here, I'm not sure what you're going to do, because if you've only got that a small amount of overhang, I don't know how you could get any kind of a vise in there. Well, you could, no, even then, I don't know how you could do that. You're going to have to get creative if you're going to try to mount a vise and you've only got 3 inches of overhang on that outside edge. I don't know. unless you can cut into that frame underneath and install the vise underneath your bench top in past that. Other than that, I haven't got an idea for you on that one, but I'm not 100% clear. So if you get a chance to re-ask that question in a different way and shed some light on it, I might be able to help. Next, Frick.
Kind of along the same line, Jay Norton in Wind Gap, Pennsylvania. How far
Jay?
from the edge of the bench do you recommend placing the dog holes?
Mine are 1.5 inches in. So my bench dogs are square, and they start at 1.5 inches, and they go to 2.5, so about 1 inch wide. And that's good. That's where I want it. Oftentimes I will just plane up against. Where's my bench dog, Jake? Any idea?
Here.
A lot of times I'll just put the bench dog like that instead of using the vise, and then just plane up against it, which is a good way to learn how to plane and distribute the force properly so that you're not tipping it over. And that's comfortable. I wouldn't want it any farther over, and obviously wouldn't want it any closer to this side either. Okay, next question, Frick.
Jay Yokas in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Hi, Jay. I've been to Cincinnati and taught there numerous times.
Can you offer any ideas to build a stable workbench which can be taken apart easily to transport? Not concerned about lightweight, more about the base which breaks down. I still want it stable.
Right there. The best answer. It's easy to take apart. It's easier to put together. It fits in that little box I told you about. That bench will fit into a box that's approximately 24 by 60 inches by 6 inches deep. I don't think you can get any smaller than that. What?
Well, if it had the
Oh, the
Tusk
knockdowns?
benches.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted it a little bit faster, but you could. So we recently did a video on doing a
Right there,
a tusked tenon. So this, one of the benches, the first bench that I purposely built, no, second bench that I built to go travel to do the wood show circuit. Where's this better one? I used to do all the wood shows across Canada, which was from Halifax to Victoria. There was probably 16 or 17 of them. And you'd set up on Thursday. The show would run Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and it was mayhem because we were seeing 20 to 30,000 people. And then Sunday night, when the show closed at 6 o'clock, you had 3 or 4 hours to get packed up. I hated that night. So anything that would make it easier. Instead of sitting there with nuts and bolts and we used this. And it was, mine would be bigger than this one is. I got to put a piece of wood on there in order to get at it. So you put it together, that goes in there like that. You put that there, you give it a whack, it's rock solid, it's done. And it comes out that easy. So there probably isn't a faster way to do it than that. Now, that's a 10 degree, remember? Is it 5 degree or 10 degree?
At 5, definitely not.
No, I don't
10.
think it's 5. I don't remember the. I don't remember the slope.
That 10 is the shape of a dovetail.
Well, we can find out easy enough.
You can look at that. Does that look like a dovetail? No. Not a chance.
Jake's right. It's 5 degrees. 5 degree slope. Boy, I have to start trusting him more. 5 degree slope, which is nice and slender, allows it to go in there and just get singing tight. Now, could you incorporate that into this? Certainly you could. This is made up, this stretcher is made up of 3 pieces of 5/8. You could use 3/4 ply. So all you'd have to do is let the centerpiece go all the way farther through. Keep these back. These become, the outside and inside become your shoulder. You'd have to cut that same shaped hole through this, and then you have to cut mice. Rex? So this hole that you cut through this piece has to have the same shape. So you can notice that it's narrower on this side than it is on that side. and it is sloped. It's got the same slope on it, so that when you put this through, it's not getting tight on one edge or the other if you want it to stay tight. And I always make it so that the floor, this part, is well inside. You can see down in there. It's well inside this surface, so that when you put this in, it doesn't tighten up prematurely. Be no good if that tightened up on the bottom. You want it to tighten up against this outside face. All right. That was a long way of answering that question. But here I am self-promoting, but it's too bad you asked the question. That is the best bench for all the criteria that you asked. And it's easy and fast to do, and in no time you're working on a good solid bench. So remember, you can get the vise. The Schoberg vices are on sale. If you go in and watch that video, I don't know if Luther put the link in there or not, but at the back end of the video, it will give you the discount code, and we just got a big shipment of them in there. So knock yourself out, build yourself a bench, and get to work. You still get time to make Christmas boxes. Frick, next.
Next question comes from Hank Granger in Hyannis, Massachusetts.
Hold that thought for just a second. So we're having a draw tonight. Any idea where we are in terms of how many?
We're just over $1,000 the last time we checked.
Oh, really? So we're only giving away one saw?
$1,200.
So for every $1,000 increment, in donations to PHP, we're going to give away one of these saws. You know what? I'm going to. Should we throw in James's 5,000?
No.
Well, we'll make it worth one.
Okay.
Okay.
You want to do that?
Okay, so we're going to add James's, because he's not here and not participating, but just for the sake so we can give away a little bit more. We're going to give away one of our new dovetail saws, the 75 3/4 dovetail saw. And we're also giving away 3 either dead cats or golf shirts or the little happy sweaters. Put your name in the draw. Doesn't require anything. If you want to help out, Purple Heart Project is where we bring in combat wounded veterans. We do it 6 times a year, May through October, 7 at a time for a 6-day class. We cover their airfare, their hotel, their meals. We send each vet home with approximately $4,000 worth of premium tools, and thanks to the Bench Brigade, a workbench. Very therapeutic for people, particularly those suffering from PTSD and injuries like that. Hopefully we'll be back on track. We managed to get one class in 2021. We had one back in September. We were planned one last week, and it got canceled because of COVID outbreak here. Anyway, so if you want to join us, you're welcome to. And if you are a combat wounded vet and want to apply, do that too. It's on our website. As soon as you go up RobCosman.com, on the left-hand side, PHP tells the whole story.
Did you just say that people could join us for the class?
No, I didn't mean to say that.
Okay.
What I meant was if you want to join in participating and helping, you can do that. Make a donation. It all goes towards supplying tools or bringing these guys in. Go ahead, Frick. Sorry I interrupted you.
Yeah, I'm used to it.
Yeah, no.
Hank Granger in Hyannis, Massachusetts says, when building a workbench
Hi, Hank.
with a shoulder vise, why do you need the cross-grain construction at that end? Could you just attach shorter boards running in the same direction as the bench core?
So Hank is talking about this piece right here. So you have cross grain. You have this piece that's going to swell this way, not change its dimension this way. And you have this piece going this way and not moving that way. So either way, it's cross grain. So when I said that, I thought of something. So if you turn it around like this, then you've got even more movement as a result of this expanding and contracting, and it's trapped here, right? I'll tell you how I built this. I did this because this is the way Frank Claus did it, and it made sense. So the way I built this, this section, there's triple splines, 3 splines holding this piece to that piece and this piece to this piece. It's only glued to about there, so the rest of this is allowed to expand like that. Here, you notice there's a bolt right there. There's triple splines, that's 3 splines holding this piece to this end cap. And it's glued from about here to here, and then the rest of this is all a dry fit. So this bolt is in a hole of the same size. This bolt is in a larger diameter hole with 2 washers that allows this whole thing to move that way or come back without disturbing this, and it keeps it nice and flush. 3 splines are so much better than 2. 2's better than 1. So,
Show them show them this.
oh, well, I haven't talked about this in a long time, but so I love the tool tray idea, although I end up cleaning it out every once in a while. So this ramp, the grain is running this way. And this ramp, because this dimension between my hands doesn't move. This dimension between my hands does move. And you have to have, because of the way the tail vise works, all of your movement has to go from here out. You can't go that way, you jam your tail vise. So as it moves this way, this opening right from here to here between my thumbs is going to close. Well, what does that do to a piece that runs this way? So what I have is I cut a groove in the end of this piece. I cut a piece of this same material, this mahogany. I put it in the groove. Before I put it in the groove, I put 2 springs out of a pen, ballpoint pen, one here and one in there, that will keep this tight to here, but it will allow it to move, always keeping it nice and tight to there. I drilled 2 little holes down in that bottom of that groove in this piece so that it would keep the springs indexed, but it works great. Prior to that, I didn't do that. In other benches, I just had to leave a gap because you couldn't let it tight. It was always, every time I looked over there, it made me sick. Next, Frick.
Actually, before we go to the next question, Jacqueline asked me to show something really cool, actually. And
What is it?
it is a map of,
Oh, yeah, where all the bench brigade people are. Are you going to show it up on here?
it's not on the big TV, it's on, they can see it.
Oh, Jeff O'Connor's on.
Jeff O'Connor. Jeff recently retired, and of all the vets we've had, they all stand out for different reasons, except Super Goat. We're looking for, no, Dave stood out so well, we hired him. But Jeff was such an incredible inspiration to that class. I just remember thinking, if I had a Jeff in every class, all the classes would be as good as that one. He was a natural-born leader, but he did it in such a way that, wow. I mean, my kids and my wife still talk about the impact that he had. Fantastic individual. And Jeff has a website, Facebook page, and one of the best presents I've had in a long time. So I don't shave very often, once a week. Can't stand it, don't have to. And I paid Bo, my son. I lay there on the massage table, and I get the hot towels. I always have something playing that puts me to sleep. He gives me the hot towel treatment, and then the shaving soap with the brush that Jeff makes. Jeff makes these shaving brush with natural hog bristle, and he turns a bowl. Mine's made out of Verawood? No, bog oak, sorry. And, Bo goes through that whole procedure, and I had to be the guinea pig that he learned to shave on. I have the scars to prove it, but now he's great. I pay him to do it. And Jeff makes those, so among other things. Irish kiss sticks I'm thinking of. So how do they find him? O'Connor Woodworking?
Yeah.
O'Connor Woodworking on Facebook?
Instagram.
On Instagram. And get some, you know what? You go to the store and you buy something, everybody else has it. You go to O'Connor Woodworking, you go to Bob Abbott's, what's Bob's website's name? The Vintage Veteran, I think. And you buy something with a bit of history behind it. Howdy, Jeff. And I can't wait to have you back up here. Jeff's coming in as one of our guest instructors if we ever get this stupid curse behind us.
Super Dave says that of all his proteges,
Super Goat,
Jeff O'Connor has the most promise.
Now, I don't have time to let you in on all that, but there's a running debate of who would win in a sanctioned arm wrestling. Mud wrestling?
Mud.
You say mud wrestling? Arm wrestling. Jeff or Super Goat? And I know Supergoat would hold back, just for Jeff's ego, but Jeff, you're awesome, brother. Thanks for being on. Okay, Frick, what do you got?
Well, I still had the map up there.
Oh, you got the map?
Yeah, so it shows all the blue dots here that you see are all members of the bench brigade, and all those
Why are we looking at something there?
all those black
I was
dots that
looking
you
at the
see are benches that have been delivered, I believe. You can see the names here on the left.
So we still have, I think Jack and I were talking about this last week, there's at least half of the vets that have been to our class that either we have not been able to contact or we have yet to be able to give them a bench. Who's getting the bench right away?
Eric?
Luther.
Oh,
No, Luther.
Austin.
Austin. So Austin was Special Forces
Yeah.
and got injured in a parachute accident, left him paralyzed from the waist down. He came to our class and we had to modify a bench. Well, he's just getting back into woodworking, contacted Luther because we'd lost contact with him. And Luther got him in touch with Jack, and Jack got him in touch with a good buddy, one of our bench brigade members from Alberta, who already delivered a bench for Josh Briand out in BC, and they're going to make this bench, customize it for Austin, who's in a wheelchair. So we'll keep you up to date on that as it happens, but just great stuff happening. Anyway, so a lot of these combat wounded vets that have been to our program don't have a bench or have not been given a bench from us, and we want to do that. We have eager bench brigade members that want to do this. So if you're watching and you haven't spoke up and you haven't got a bench, please let these people do this. Remember, sometimes you're the reason why somebody else gets to feel good about doing something for someone. So don't sit there thinking, no, somebody else deserves it more. Let them do it. They deserve it, and you deserve it. Frick, give me another question before we end, please.
Shoot. I closed them because we're out of time. I'm doing the draw.
Come on. Don't be a Scrooge. We're close to Christmas. Give me one more.
It's October.
That's close.
Trying to find one I didn't. Okay, Timothy Runyon in Bremerton, Washington.
Timothy in Bremerton, I know where that is.
Okay, about 30 years ago, I followed Frank Claus on hand-cut dovetails. I built a Scandinavian-style workbench. I've resanded the top once and renewed the waterlocks finish. My question is, what care and maintenance do you recommend?
Just use it. My first bench, I used to cover with a blanket at night. The oil finish that I use on it, I cut probably 20% with mineral spirits, just so it goes on easier. My only real reason for having a finish on there is just to keep the glue from sticking to the surface. I mean, I try to be careful with it. I purposely don't do anything that's going to damage it. So any dings in here have happened as an accident. So yeah, when the time comes, I'll resurface the top. But I don't do anything special other than just try to treat it with
Can you hear me?
bit of care. What?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. Are we done?
Yep.
I guess that was the last one.
Just a reminder, Rob only gets asked questions that were submitted prior to the live. The link to submit your questions is sent out to our newsletter subscribers. So if you're asking a question in the chat expecting Rob to answer it, that's not going to happen. Luther will answer it in the chat to promote people to submit their questions beforehand.
Okay. To promote people to register for our newsletter. Our newsletter is information soaked. We always have a video on the topic, and Luther usually writes an article or two related to it. So we do our newsletter to provide content to our subscribers to help them in their woodworking. We do use it also to advertise any new tools or any specials. We have a special every month. And newsletter subscribers always get first crack at things like seconds or anything that we do. We treat our newsletter as our most valued customers. So how many saws are we giving away? Is your main camera on right now? Or is
Yeah,
it
the second one is
the
on.
light's not on.
Yeah, frick.
Oh, and it just died. It just died.
I just heard something click.
Yeah, that camera went out, and Jake's camera's acting pretty funny too. Just give us a second, folks.
So tell me how many, do you know how many we're giving away tonight?
2. We've reached over 2,000.
Okay, and we're going in and throwing an extra one for the other donation that James gave. So we're
just
going to give
gonna
away
go to
3
mine.
saws,
Sure.
3 dead cats, or happy sweaters, or golf shirts, and 3 saws. And we'll give away 3 hats too. Tell me when we're back on.
Well, they can see my screen, so I can do the
Okay,
draws.
so all right.
All right, we ready?
Yeah, but just before you do, were there any more vets that spoke up?
Not that I've been notified, no.
But
Possibly.
Super Goat was on.
I didn't see him.
Wasn't on, Jake?
Yeah, he was.
Was he? All right, we ready?
Dave's in a class all by himself.
Okay, first winner. What's this for?
Let's give away the 3 hats first.
Okay, hat number 1 is going to Sandy.
We'll sign it for them.
Sandy Masquit in Maryland, USA.
Sandy, congratulations.
Hat winner number 2. Brian Graham in Missouri.
Hey, Brian, congratulations.
MO is Missouri, right?
Yep.
Next winner of the hat is Dennis Tachi also in Missouri.
Hey, Dennis, congratulations. Just before we do the next 3, I want to remind you, if you like Kevin's work and you're interested in about having him quote on doing something for you, whether it's a pet or anything else, he's got a very good imagination and a great hand and eye. You can find him by going to, you're going to provide a link, Frick?
Yeah, it's right on the screen.
Link is on there.
Mirroredimpressions.com.
And we're about to give away your choice of a dead cat sweater, a golf shirt, or the happy sweater. And if you're not lucky enough to get one and you want your own, I know he's got some pre-Christmas inventory. You do need to order now because mail's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. Go to patssecretgarden.com. You'll find it on the site. All right, let's give away the choice of one of the 3 garments.
Shoot. Okay. 1 second here. Let me get that off the screen. All right. Next winner is Bill Farrell in Norfolk, UK.
Hey, Bill, congratulations. Tell us the size and your choice. Gina will pack it up. And a special thanks to Gina and Pam. They're the ones that do your orders up. And we're busy and about to get a whole lot busier. So they go above and beyond. And we appreciate what they do.
Okay, next one. Next one's going to David Quinn in Texas.
Hey, David, congratulations. Final
clothing.
Yep.
Final piece of clothing is going to Alec Weaver in California.
Hey, Alec, congratulations to you. Okay, now let's give away 3 75. Why did I say 75?
75%.
3/4 dovetail saws. The Len Robichaud 3/4 saw. First one.
First one is going to Caleb Schmerge in Washington.
Caleb, congratulations. Washington, D.C. or Washington State?
Just says WA.
Okay,
So
that's
that'd be
Washington State.
Yeah. Next up is James Tustin in Ontario, Canada.
Hey, James, congratulations.
How many are we drawing?
One more.
One more.
Okay, great.
Last winner is Catherine Harshfield in United States, Colorado.
Hey, Catherine, congratulations. Was Charlie on tonight? Charlie Ray?
Didn't
I
notice.
didn't see him.
Charlie, if you're on, howdy, salt of the earth. Charlie Ray was, we need more Charlies in this world, I'll tell you that. So I'm saying good night.
You are.
Thanks for being with us, folks. We appreciate your support. I hope you get value out of this. Whatever the topic is, we'll be here in 2 weeks' time. Bob Abbott will be highlighted on his business. You're going to see some of his work, and hopefully we'll have some others as well. Plus, we may have a very special guest for you. That's coming soon. Watch for a new saw. It should be out this week. Get on our newsletter. That's how you'll find out. Thanks to Kevin. Thanks to Moose for being here. Thanks to Erica, my daughter, who always prepares a wonderful meal for us just before we go on. I hope I didn't have spaghetti in my mouth tonight. Have a good night, folks. See you in 2 weeks. The music.